Hey friends, this is Dolynny TV. Glad to have you aboard here today on a Sunday edition as the Edmonton Oilers. Well, let me tell you before we dig into the meat and potatoes of the video, could have had a much different complexion of the offseason so far if a couple of players would have agreed to the Oilers' ask on their no movement, no trade clause, whatever you want to say, whatever these guys got. They said no, they remain Edmonton Oilers for now, and obviously as well some other market factors kind of factoring into the Bouchard contract and ultimately the goaltending as well. We'll touch on all that plus Connor McDavid in a little bit here, but if you are new to the channel, friends, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button. I appreciate all of you that hit that subscribe button for free yesterday on the big video talking about Matthew Savoy, Noah Philp, and of course Andrew Mangiapane. There's a bunch of other guys in the Oilers wings that'll be a big time help. I assume Tomaszek will get more than 6 points, which would equal the production or outdo the production of Mr. Derek Ryan next season. So let's keep in mind here, the Oilers have plenty of options. It's just about it coming together, unlike it did when we signed back in the day Nygaard and of course Haas. So friends, what do we know? Well, I teased you right off the start that the Oilers attempted to make some trades here sometime in the past few weeks. All this information I want to tell you is brought to you by the 32 Thoughts podcast, Elliotte Friedman, Kyle Bukauskas, and of course Elliotte Friedman, like I said, dropping some bombshells here, basically detailing what would have been a very different Oilers offseason if all would have come to pass, as the Oilers asked both Nurse and Henrique to waive their no trade clause, as well as of course Victor Arvidsson, who did and was promptly moved. Both Henrique and Darnell Nurse said no to being traded by the Edmonton Oilers. Obvious reasons there. Can anyone count them? The Oilers are still a championship contending team. And for Nurse, he wants to win with his friends. And for Henrique, he wants to win before his career is done, as the sun is getting real low on the back half of Mr. Adam Henrique's NHL career. Obviously, his role's diminishing minute by minute, and very likely by the end of the year, we'll talk about this at the end of the video, I don't even know if he's still an Edmonton Oiler. That said, things will have to change on his front for that to happen. So Darnell Nurse not waiving his no trade clause. That again lines up, no movement clause, I guess it's a full no move, but it lines up with kind of where we're at Oiler Alert. They're saying that nothing really can change until, well, basically January 1st, 2027. But you're looking at it here, Darnell Nurse, 9.25 against the cap. You know, we were talking about Jeremy Swayman. Some other folks were talking about Ilya Sorokin. You wonder if those names were in play had Nurse said yes. And that's where, again, for the Islanders, they moved out Noah Dobson. And for the Boston Bruins, they don't know what the heck they're doing over there. So that would kind of play into the fact that the Oilers maybe were big game hunting in the goalie market and just couldn't get it done because their biggest cap asset didn't want to waive out of Edmonton. So fair enough, Darnell Nurse, that's his right, can't blame him. The Oilers gave him that opportunity to do that with the contract they signed him to, and hey, you know what, can't blame a guy for wanting to stick here and win, especially when you've come up 2 and 1 game short respectively in the past 2 years of the Stanley Cups. So big time movement opportunity there for the Oilers, shut down by both Darnell Nurse and Adam Henrique. We now move forward to the signing attempts, where Elliotte Friedman also notes that the Oilers were after a right winger for Draisaitl, but ultimately couldn't do it due to cap constraints. Now, what Elliotte also mentions in conjunction with this is the fact that, well, for the Oilers, Vasily Podkolzin, likely because of not being able to sign a top 6 right winger for Draisaitl, will continue to ride alongside Draisaitl in the Oilers' top 6. One would assume that Vasily Podkolzin, after a good year of playing with Draisaitl and understanding him, probably produces a little bit more offensively and chips in a bit more maybe in the playoffs as well, and especially continuing his physical play. So for the Oilers, signing a right winger for Draisaitl, you know, you come up short. I don't think after getting Mangiapane you're too upset. Elliotte also mentioned signing Mangiapane was kind of a beautiful thing for the Oilers. There was an offer on Toronto's side They had it pretty much all lined up. They just needed to figure out how to make it work in terms of players and movement and all that. Mangiapane, more or less from what I gather, got sick of waiting around and decided, hey, guys, screw your offer. I'm going to Edmonton. It's almost the same. I'm good. So that's how we got Andrew Mangiapane. So we move forward to the big topic of the offseason, which is the goalie coach, which is the goaltending. Obviously, why the title says goalie situation. The Oilers will have a new approach in the crease. Unlikely at this point to have new goalies. At least that is the key, right? I think Elliotte Friedman was pretty skeptical anything's going to change in the crease until we see what a new approach from the goaltending coach does for both Stu Skinner and Calvin Pickard. Now, obviously, in conjunction with that is you have that it's been rumored because of the loss of Glenn Gulutzan, the expiring contracts on the bench, and the removal of Dustin Schwartz as goaltending coach, this week upcoming will be a big, new, bright, beautiful week for the Oilers bench as Chris Knobloch reveals the guys he wants coaching this team underneath him, and obviously kind of how things develop from there. Paul Coffey likely to remain on, everybody else likely to be gone, if not already gone, in the case of Glenn Gulutzan and possibly in the case of Dustin Schwartz. So keep that in mind. The goaltending will be a little bit in flux here over the next little bit as the Oilers continue to survey the market to see if anything's available, but also continue to survey if anything is possible to happen with just a new approach. So apologies about the camera there. But that is that one. Let's move forward to the McDavid contract, friends, where no scare on Connor McDavid right now. Elliotte Friedman reports that the Oilers likely to agree to whatever term dollars. And right now, all McDavid is really deciding on is what the term is for his new deal in Edmonton. Obviously, you'd assume, a 7-year deal. I think that was talked about on the Heavy Hockey podcast there. I was on back a few days back. That would, a 7-year deal lined up with Draisaitl. That makes sense. An 8-year deal makes sense as well, but we've also heard the rumored 4-year deal, and I think the Oilers, although they're likely to agree to whatever term and dollar Connor wants, are unlikely to go anything less than 4. That's what I'd assume, and I think Connor as well knows that, hey, you know what, you do another 4 years, you win 2 cups, you're a glorified Edmonton Oiler for that point forward, your number's retired guaranteed, and you move forward as a franchise kind of piece that'll never be forgotten. And obviously 4 years is a good enough window to win 2 cups with this Edmonton Oilers team, so it makes sense. So again, nothing there. I do want to touch on this, kind of is in almost a jumbled up order in terms of how Elliotte Friedman spelled it out to Kyle Bukauskas in the 32 Thoughts podcast. This was actually the starting point of, kind of the podcast and the Oilers segment, as an offer sheet and arbitration played a large factor in final dollar amount, that 10.5 for Evan Bouchard. And we know there was rumors specifically from Elliotte Friedman earlier last week or the week before that said 9.5 is the dollars that get it done. I think the Oilers and Bouchard's camp got the sense that arbitration would award $10 million, maybe after Noah Dobson signed his contract. So it was kind of almost a guarantee that the Oilers had to push just a little bit further to avoid, the offer sheet complication, and of course to lock up Bouchard for the next 4 years. So that is what happened. That is what got done, and that is all you need to know. The Oilers don't really have much else to say on that. So I want to quickly close out today's video. Again, thank you for being aboard, but I want to touch on that thing I talked about when it comes to Adam Henrique. I think this is going to be a long rumored thing. Again, you got to remember Victor Arvidsson was asked to waive his no trade clause back in the trade deadline territory of the calendar, and he said no. Ultimately, he changes his mind after a season kind of continually goes sideways from there. So despite the no early this offseason from Adam Henrique, I could still see the Oilers moving Rico. And again, I know Adam Henrique's a playoff tested player. I know that he's a veteran guy. I know he's an older guy. I know he's kind of what you need to keep on this roster kind of throughout the season and into the playoffs. But again, when you're talking about his cap hit and the possibility that he could really impact a move at the deadline based on his cap hit, I think the Oilers really have to be smart here and move forward with a player that they can go out there and get on the market if they have him available, and Adam Henrique does indeed say yes. And obviously Henrique's role will play a large factor in what happens next for him as an Edmonton Oiler. Does Henrique, as it's maybe been rumored by a couple people, slot up on the left wing with Connor McDavid at least to start the season? You would assume that ups his trade value, getting the production, and also allows you to get the most production possible out of a guy like Adam Henrique, maybe replacing that Corey Perry role to some extent, especially if maybe Zach Hyman's a little bit banged up and needs a slow start to the year. Again, I've heard different stories on Hyman, so not going to speculate there. But there is a whole bunch of potential here for the Oilers that, again, I doubt Nurse from here on out moves, but Adam Henrique continues to be a possibility. So, again, goalie coach and the new coaching staff that comes in under Chris Knoblauch. I was just about to say Jay Woodcroft there. Under Chris Knoblauch, this week will be a big week for that. That is at least the direction that it's been rumored, and Stan Bowman and Jeff Jackson had kind of made that known. And then as well from there, you've got the McDavid saga continues. And of course, you kind of continue to evolve the goaltending market and see if anybody else across the NHL out there shakes loose as the Edmonton Oilers attempt to at least figure out their goaltending, whether it be a new approach simply straight up from the goalie coach, or whether it be a new backup to Stu Skinner or a new starter and Stu Skinner becomes the backup. Who really knows what happens? Obviously, it is only July 6th. It feels like the offseason's lasted 3 months already, given how long the playoffs have been over for, despite only really being over for just over 2.5 weeks. So, friends, thank you for being aboard here today. Appreciate you hanging out with me again. Like I said off the top, if you are new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button. Would love to have you aboard as a regular viewer here on the channel. If you are already and you're not subscribed and not going to do that, I appreciate that just the same. But for right now, friends, thank you for hanging out here on a Sunday afternoon. I am up on out of here. Have a great Sunday. Hopefully tomorrow the Oilers choose to announce the coaching staff, and then we can dig into that meat and potatoes right away after work on a fun Monday following a week that many probably had the entire time off. So for right now, I'm up on, gone.